so far, but I can't lose this.
For the fourth year running, we're about to send some of iRacing Off-Road's best up the mountain. The now not new Mount Washington Auto Road doesn't get a whole lot of use within public races here on the iRacing service, but tonight we are going to see who is the best at getting up the mountain. Welcome to the 2024 Race to the Summit on RaceSpotTV. We're happy that all of you are able to join us on this Saturday afternoon. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining me in the booth tonight is Evan Pasoko. And Evan, we've done this before. We're getting ready to do it again, taking cars up the Mount Washington Auto Road. This track, and we'll take a look at the event format in a moment as well, but this track is so special, and this event has become special and a highlight for a lot of these drivers. Really the only time they get to race on the Mount Washington Auto Road all year long, and they're about to do it with prizes on the line and, oh, by the way, some bragging rights as well.
Yeah, it's fun to be doing it again for a fourth time, right? And as iRacing expands, and we've seen first the introduction of these rally cars to begin with, right? But then this Mount Washington Auto Road, these niche events that can truly be a staple on anybody's calendar. We've got 18 of the best drivers who are going to give it 3 rips up the mountain here tonight and hope to become the third different king of the mountain, if you will, over the course of this event's 4-year history. Should be a lot of fun, a lot of big names, returning names, and some names who have yet to participate in this event. Curious how they fare in their first time out.
And of course, on that format, you can see the controlled starts as well that Race Control will be doing all night long, sent in 45-second intervals, and fastest time, end of the night, is going to be the winner. But the running order for this event as well, you can see all the way at the bottom, Alari Lamansivu, our winner from last year, is going to be the last driver within the order. Now, of course, when we go into the second and third attempts. Alari will be the last one to go up the mountain, but Caleb Hides is going to lead us off here in just a few moments, and you can see the eclectic list down, Evan. I mean, Garrett Maines is in this list. He's done iRacing Rallycross before. Josh Edmondson from the iRacing Off-Road Championship Series. Same with Josh Fox, and then a whole smorgasbord of other drivers that know their way around four-wheel drive rallycross machines.
Is a diverse amount of talent, right? A lot of people have experience in these cars, other things on dirt or off-road on the service, and in other drivers who have dabbled in a little bit of all of it. I think it's going to be really interesting as you look at this long 7.6 mile climb up the Mount Washington Auto Road to see how those intervals play a factor, right? If everybody's got their best lap in the works, a 45-second gap is going to mean they have plenty of space. But if the car in front of me has a bad couple of corners, doesn't abandon their lap, even has an incident and decides to keep on going if they can, how would that affect a faster car down the road? We'll have to be keeping an eye, because there will be points where maybe a majority of the 18 cars or so that are scheduled to go racing are going to be on the mountain at any given point. So we'll see if they play a factor at all in each other's attempts.
Well, everybody getting reset right now. Track is getting clear as we get ready to send our first couple of drivers up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Up first will be Caleb Hides, one of those next level racing drivers, and we saw those prize lists earlier. That is all next level racing gear. Very glad that Next Level Racing hopped on again to the race to the summit to provide all of those prizes. But let's not waste any more time. First runs getting started up the Mount Washington Auto Road. You're taking a look at Caleb Hides as he works his way up the hill for the first time, and this is going to be our banker lap time, Evan. We've seen laps underneath 5 minutes. That's kind of the baseline, the bottom end of the percentile that everybody is going to be going for, but this is going to be the first time we see anybody get up the Mount Washington Auto Road today and kind of be our baseline for what we can expect.
Of course, there's been some tweaks and whatnot to some of the physics on iRacing to these cars since we did this event a year ago, right? So these drivers have certainly put in the time and practice between then and now, but it is a bit of pressure, I'd say, for Caleb Hides to be the first man out. And you also wonder, you know, what percentage is Caleb and the rest of these drivers going to be doing first trip around, right? I mean, 3 attempts, I'm willing to bet that most drivers aren't going to feel like all 3 of the laps are perfect. And right there on cue, Caleb feels like he made a pretty big mistake. He brings that car to a complete stop. You mentioned banker lap. Curious if somebody maybe goes 75, 80% on this first trip up the mountain to get a lap time on the board in case some of the unpredictability takes some of the drivers' hot laps out of the equation. And then once you've got something on the board, then you push, you look to improve. But Hides obviously with a mistake first time out, not what he wanted to do.
And now we wait for driver number 2 to start working their way up the mountain. It's going to be Brandon Bullock. That will be running for the second lap. And doesn't look like he is currently on the racetrack. So we're waiting for him to see if he's going to take his time. If he doesn't, it would be Sean Winkler that is going to end up going third out of those drivers. And decent amount of drivers have offered up their Zoom cameras, and Sean Winkler, no stranger to providing us some of his views in the Racecraft Group Ford Fiesta that he's going to be taking up the mountain today. One of those VR drivers, Evan, seems like off-road, seems like rallycross, especially these two are very much favoring virtual reality in terms of what you're familiar with. eNASCAR, Coca-Cola iRacing Series competitors, majority of them are using the triple monitor setup versus the virtual reality.
A lot of time, those triple monitors for NASCAR racing and even some of the other asphalt stuff on the service is plenty to suffice because the track is the same every single time around you go. You kind of know your braking points. You want things to be predictable and you want things to be familiar, right? Especially in a hill climb where it's a point-to-point race like this. Those marks you don't have to worry about hitting at same time, lap 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth. So you really want to be able to look around, right? These cars are going to be going from the far outside of the road to the inside. Next corner coming up, you really, I think, do appreciate that extra value of being able to decide where up the road exactly you want to look. And that also applies to your point, not just in a hill climb like this, but rallycross and other off-road things on the service as well.
Also got a decent amount of other drivers that are providing their view for us. And this is Klaus Kreutzer from the team Watson Racing Setups Brigade. He's one of those drivers using the triple monitor setup. And we'll see that number 77 Subaru end up going up the mountain in just a little bit. And it sounds like Race Control looking to get the next driver up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Seems like there might have been a little bit of an issue before we began. Waiting on Caleb Hides to potentially make his first official run up the mountain. Seemed like that first run up the mountain was maybe a little bit premature on the Race Control side. So waiting to see what is going to happen with the next driver that ends up going up the Mount Washington Auto Road. But still got a long road ahead of us. No times being put in just yet of all of our drivers, and waiting for the first couple to work their way all the way up the 7-mile marathon that is the Mount Washington Auto Road. And Evan, when this was added to iRacing, I mean, it kind of still stands on its own. It's the only track that really is not a race track. It's not a traditional lap. It is a run that is all the way one way, or you can go the other way, same way, but it just goes all the way up the mountain. And it's still the only track in iRacing that is like this. You're not going to have a race session necessarily. You're going to have time trials.
Yeah, I don't have one of the this car Climb Mount Washington stickers on my car, but it'd be fun to do that sometime, right? This road was completed in 1861, stretches 7.6 miles, and climbs over 4,600 feet. From the base to the summit, that's an average gradient of 11.6%. And to your point about Caleb Hides maybe being instructed to restart his first lap, he is back on track indeed. So erase the fact that we thought maybe he had blown it on his first lap. Seems like Race Control instructed him to come back down the hill, restart. So this is now the first flying lap time for the Next Level Racing Ford of Caleb Hides.
Hides gets started and works his way into the middle sectors now. It just gets tougher and tougher the farther up the Mount Washington Auto Road that you go. But the first time not put in yet, but the second driver has been sent. You're taking a look at the Ford Fiesta of Brandon Bullock, who almost goes off track, puts a foot wrong into the grass. Luckily, this is run number 1 of 3. But that just goes to show just how tough this racetrack is going to be, Evan, with drivers trying to get up as quickly as possible.
That's the key too, right? Is it's hard to focus on a specific spot of this racetrack when there's just so many corners. iRacing clocks it as 138 individual turns in the 7.6 mile run up the hill. So like in other forms of motorsports, if you're feel like your lap time was off on a road course or a street circuit, right, it's maybe a little bit more easy to pinpoint, like, oh, I feel like I need to improve in turn 2, I need to improve in turn 3. Here you can't really pinpoint it to a single corner. It's just kind of different sections of the racetrack that you have to try to focus on, because they all flow into each other so seamlessly that it's not just this corner, that corner. It's, I got to be better in the 6 mile grade, or, you know, I wasn't too good by the horn in the halfway house side, right? So there's different areas of the racetrack that you got to focus on. But honestly, probably 90% of this is muscle memory, right? It's you are hyper focused, but these drivers have done hundreds, if not thousands, of trips up this mountain. That's what they're relying on now in order to get a fast time in.
You can compare it pretty closely to running a rally car on a rally course, as Caleb Hides ends up having to tow. No, he's not going to tow. He's going to get back going. But as I was saying, you can compare it to a rally course, which is one way, same way, and just running to the finish. But you normally have a co-driver in those scenarios. No co-driver here. You are on your own trying to run all the way up the mountain. And we get a look now at Sean Winkler starting his first flyer. And of course, Winkler, very familiar with the rallycross machines, very familiar with off-road, very familiar with the Racecraft group who he's racing with here. And he gets started to knock down lap number 1, or I should say attempt number 1 at trying to get up the hill.
And now we're going to get to the point is there's trouble there, and that's Caleb Hides, who's off track. Now, He's able to get it going again. That's the point I mentioned earlier. A lot of the time you make a mistake at a racetrack like this, that car's not going to be able to continue at all. Hyde's fortunate that he didn't go all the way off the edge of the mountain, so he's going to get back going, and then right on cue. Yeah, that's how most mistakes happen here at Mount Washington. So Hyde's first car out 2 times, basically, that we saw isn't going to be able to get his first lap in. Now we know that that'll be first lap burned, and he'll have to go into his second trip with nothing on the board to fall back on. And I think that means that Brandon Bullock now highest man up the road as he chases towards the summit.
We'll go on board for the moment with Sean Winkler as he wrestles that machine up the mountain. Nobody has put in an official lap time yet, and you'll see really the challenging parts of the hill climb starting to come up right about halfway up the mountain. There is one very distinct dirt section before you get to the last run up to the summit of the Mount Washington Auto Road. It's trouble if you're not running a 4-wheel drive rallycross car. These things are very easy through the dirt, but I've seen drivers take up NASCAR next-gen machines, old NASCAR Cup Series machines, anything that is not supposed to race on dirt up the Mount Washington Auto Road. The dirt spells trouble for them. It's not going to spell trouble for this group of guys, as here comes the dirt right now.
And this is the same spot where we saw Hyde really start to lose control. The dirt section also tends to be just a touch thinner than the asphalt run up the hill. And then obviously just the way the surface interacts with these cars is so different on the asphalt to the dirt. So it really is the best of both worlds in terms of if you enjoy that challenge, but it is double the challenge. And then towards the top of the hill, that's Brandon Bullock, I mentioned, who's the highest one up. He's nearly at the summit. And if he can keep it on track for a couple of more corners, we'll be looking at our first completed lap. You mentioned somewhere in that 5-minute range is kind of the ballpark where we think perhaps an event-winning time may come from. And we're about to find out what Bullock's going to put down as he hits the 5-minute mark.
And you can see the top of the mountain right in front of him that he is trying to catch as quickly as he can. Is he going to catch it, though? He seems to not be putting a foot wrong. There's a little bit of a jump over that final road section. It's going to be a 5:12.261 for Brandon Bullock. First official time in for him. This is Klaus Kreutzer, who we're taking a look at now. He was the third send up the mountain, and you can see the intervals that we're sending drivers. One driver done, and now Kreutzer is entering the dirt.
And that's a beautiful look, too, at how those triple monitors are, right? We talked a lot about how a lot of drivers who run this type of racing on the surface may enjoy the VR. I think the triple monitors is kind of a bare minimum for an event like this. I could not imagine trying to go up the hill with just a single screen. You'd feel like you're flying blind, and he seems pretty locked in. You haven't seen any major overcorrects. You'll see he kind of cuts that S section straight through. Again, that goes back to the muscle memory point. A little bit of overcorrect there as he gets to the final run up the hill towards the summit. And again, we know 5:12.260 is the time to beat that has Brandon Bullock in the catbird seat at the moment. What does Kreutzer do? Again, it's difficult when there's so many corners and it's such a long run up the hill to kind of pinpoint. I think this car's better here, better there, different sectors, if you will. So I'm just looking at the body language of Kreutzer, right? Hasn't looked too frustrated. Haven't seen a ton of kind of overcorrecting despite, or I guess I should say aside from what you would expect to see. And as he gets to the final couple of runs, let's see what the 77's able to clock in.
He continues his way up for Kreutzer. He's almost reaching the very top of the mountain. I was watching Toby Ward in the 66, who was on a flyer. He just went flying off of the Mount Washington Auto Road. We'll see if we can grab a quick replay of that in a moment. But coming up to the top of the mountain is Kreutzer. Where is he going to slot in? Bullock is your time to beat, 5:12.261. Cross the line. It is a 5:07.934 that will be good enough for the current top spot. Let's take a look at that quick replay of Toby Ward. He was working his way up the mountain, sets a foot wrong, and way off that he goes. That is unfortunate for Toby Ward, and you can see the kind of immediate reset up the mountain to the closest reset point to where he was, and that's about all it spelled for him.
It's that easy, and that's why I mentioned, you might see some drivers go in an 80% push range, get a time in, and then decide where those risks need to be taken, as you know, going into your second trip up the hill, that almost everybody would have completed their first pass by then. You'd have an idea of kind of the average lap time that people have been putting down. You'll also, I think, have a pretty good idea who you're eyeing up, right? You're not going to know what Lemisiov did because he'll be going last in this group as the defending race winner, but you're going to know who's fast. You're going to know who maybe you think is a podium contender in this event. Road, but it also does cut into that margin for error because, well, you don't need to worry about the dirt and you sliding around. If you can, slide a rear tire and nick a rock, that's not going to move based on the iRacing physics. That could send the car up and in the air right away. So maybe a small sigh of relief once you get through the dirt section, and now when you get to here, you really got to lock in and push as hard as you can. It is also, I'll say, Josh, a little bit easier to see what's up next when you get to the top of the hill. There's a couple of blind corners, but for the most part, when you're low, you're in the tree line, it's a little bit trickier to see the next 2-3 turns up the road. That does get a touch easier and may give these drivers a bit more confidence to push when they're this high up.
Robichaux about to finish a lap now. It was tracking purple. It's down to tracking green. Is it going to be good enough? He comes through the final corners, the final push. Is it enough to go top of the board in round one? Cross the line. 5:04.767 official time. 5:06.259. It will not be enough for Robichaux on the first pass. This is now Zach Blanche, who is the next one that is going to finish a lap time 4 minutes 20 now as he's in the final stretch. This time is looking pretty good. And you'll be able to see our timing tower in a few moments. Robbie Swan looks like put in a preemptive time that is not official, but as of right now, it is faster than the 4 official times that we have had come in. So we're waiting on at least somebody to beat Robbie, or Robbie to run his time and put another one in to be able to show you the times table with all of the times that have currently run. But we can tell you that Thomas Poulsen's currently at the top. Justin Robichaux is second. Klaus Kritzer is third. Brendan Bullock is fourth. And as Zach Blanche comes across the line, he will get a 5:01.767 or a 5:03.809 and take the new time to beat. With the 15 of Zach Blanche up to the top.
He's able to get it by just under a 1 second interval back to Thomas Poulsen, who we think right now is in second, and then it's Johnny Palaneva, who'd be the next driver to put down a lap time as he nears the top of the mountain. Also, second straight Ford that we've seen. We were talking a bit pre-race about maybe some of the vehicle preferences, and I mentioned, the physics on iRacing changes. There's tweaks to some of the surface models, the tracks, the physics, the cars themselves. Seen a lot of drivers in the Fords. But funny enough, of the leaders, there are more Subarus inside of the top 4 than Fords if you look at the times that we're officially counting at the moment. A little bit off track there. Let's see if that's going to upset the 31 as Palaneva comes to the stripe. His time, 5:00.991. There is a new fastest man in town. 9/10 of a second shy of breaking the 5-minute barrier, but after Blanche edged it out over Poulsen, that is a statement lap for Palaneva in the first trip up the mountain.
Taking a look at 2 drivers that know their share of World Championship racing on iRacing. Josh Edmondson, of course, from the iRacing Off-Road Championship Series. Garrett Maines from iRacing Rallycross, from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And I'm sure he's going to try his fair share at as many World Championships as he can. But Edmondson and Maines, the next 2 to come up the mountain. Edmondson's about to finish his first run. Maines is entering into the dirt now. 2 choices of the Ford Fiesta as they run up the mountain.
Maines in that tricky dirt section again. I think a lot of the time is going to be made or lost there. And it's tricky because, again, it kind of breaks this lap up into two. Main seems to be tracking good. Edmondson, it's going to get thrown away at the last moment. That car got up on two wheels, much like we saw Palaneva, but he got into those rocks, and I had alluded to it a couple of drivers ago that is not going to be a mistake that you get away from. And I think what is going to hurt the most there for Edmondson, Josh, is that I bet Edmondson is not pushing that little bit more at that very final stretch unless he knew he was close.
That was a ride for Josh Edmondson, and we're going to follow him along on that ride in just a moment. But for now, we sit and watch Garrett Maines as he was just about up the mountain. So I want to follow him all the way up and see his lap time come in. For reference, where we're at on drivers being sent by race control, Robbie Swan is on deck, Josh Fox, Liam Buckley, Chris Pisak are all working their way up the mountain right now. We're watching Garrett Maines, who is about to put in his first attempt time to beat Yanni Palaneva at 5 minutes flat, 9:92. Second fastest time, 5:03.809. And we're waiting on the remaining times to come in from attempt number one. I mentioned earlier, if you're noticing a distinct lack of timing tower, Robbie Swan put in a full practice lap, unfortunately against race control's wishes. So I'm waiting for either somebody to beat his time or him to beat his time. But at a 4:58.662, it's not enough to beat the practice time from Robbie Swan, but it will be enough to go into the lead and our time to beat Evan. Let's take a look at this wild ride from Josh Edmondson.
Yeah, that car just gets a little bit out, and I mean, that's the difference of maybe 6 inches, where he first has that right rear tire catch the rocks, and then when it pitches the front of the car back into the terrain, that's when that car goes airborne, and we saw it get a good 15 feet or so up and in the air. So tough break for Edmondson. Again, it just means that you have a little bit less buffer on your second and third trips up the mountain, means that those mistakes get to be more and more consequential as the race goes on. Now looking at Liam Buckley, the 47 machine. He's the highest man up the mountain as they run right now, as we're down inside of the final 5 drivers being sent for their first trip up the Mount Washington Auto Road. So shortly, we'll see the likes of Caleb Hides, Brandon Bullock, and others start to be released from the bottom of the mountain for attempts number 2 of 3.
Moving forward, as the times come in for attempt number 1, Chris Pisak, I mentioned, was sent right after Garrett Maines, but I can also say, unfortunately, that he ran into a pretty big issue coming up the mountain. We'll take a look at the replay here. Evan, watch this.
That was a pretty big mistake there. Again, the car was able to stay on track. That's rare in a mistake at a racetrack like this, but once you take a hit like that, not only is your lap time not going to be something that's competitive, right? You can't, yeah, it's a long run up the hill, but if you're in a position where you want to be competitive in this, you can't throw away 7-8 seconds like that. And oftentimes you're not going off the mountain because you're hitting a tree or something, and that's going to hurt the car enough that rest of the run up the road isn't going to be any good either. Let's see what Liam Buckley can do inside of the last 20-second sprint up. There's where it all went wrong for Edmondson. He gets 2 tires off track, keeps it on. Can he beat a 4:58 to the stripe? Yes, he does. How about a 4:54 for Buckley?
And Liam Buckley finally allows us to show you all the times that have been coming in, because he beat the practice lap from Robbie Swan that he put in that ended up preventing us from showing you all the times that we've got. This is Josh Fox, who's working his way up the road now. But new fastest man in the Mount Washington Auto Road, and it's Liam Buckley.
And I did not have it on my bingo card to see a potentially event-winning lap in the first trip up the mountain. I've been going on and on about get a lap time in, see where your competitors are, decide where you want to push. The winning time from last year was a 4:54.120. That's only 0.2 off of what Buckley just did. So that lap time for Buckley would have been enough for P2 overall last year. That means there is still a gap. What can Fox do at the stripe?
Beat it.
It's even better.
4:54 flat for Josh Fox. The times get faster. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, this is just attempt number 1. Each of these drivers get 2 more runs up the mountain. We have some incredible times that we might be seeing later on in this run. This is Robbie Swan, who is making his way up the Mount Washington Auto Road now for his first official attempt. That 4:55.501 was a practice lap that he put in against Race Control's better wishes before the official times began. So where we sit now with Robbie Swan, he's going to put in first official lap time here, assuming he makes it all the way up. We were looking for Alari Lemonsivu to work his way up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Believe he might have had an incident, and Robbie Swan, after the conclusion of his time, goes flipping, and flipping. 4:55.574 was his official time there. And the second attempts begin. Looks like Caleb Hides might have had another issue, and it looks like Brandon Bullock still unable. Or no, he is making a run up the mountain right now. You were looking at Sean Winkler. Now we're taking a look at Brandon Bullock as second attempts officially begin their way. We're going to find out exactly what happened to Alari Lemonsivu, reigning champion of the Race to the Summit, on his first attempt, because we saw no times come in from him.
Make a quick note too on Robbie Swan to go 4:55.501 in his practice lap, right? That's still the time that's going to display on the board, so it'll make things a little bit skewed. The time that counts for him is a 4:55.57, his previous lap time around, incredibly close to the lap time he put down in practice, right? With a 0.7 instead of a 0.5. I mean, for a 5-minute run up the hill with 138 turns, to be able to put 2 laps back to back within less than a second of each other shows incredible pace. So yeah, we kind of have to flag Swan's lap time on the board right there, because that was a practice lap. If he can replicate that twice, there's no reason you don't think he can do it a third time, and that already puts him within the ballpark of being a second away from trying to be one of the top times in the field. So just something to keep an eye on is Robbie Swan. That consistency has been incredibly impressive to me. And now, of course, Brandon Bullock, who was the slowest of the cars in that first round with a 5:12, slowest of those who made it all the way up the hill, which is still a mid-pack time. You only see 10 on the board there. 8 of them did not make it all the way or did not score an official lap time the first trip up. Bullock needs to find a whopping, basically 18-second difference if he wants to get the Josh Fox. Was he being uber conservative the first trip up? We'll find out.
Well, I mentioned Alari Lemonsivu not putting in a time. Let's take a look at the replay. Now, this is attempt number 1. He still has 2 attempts in the can. If you're looking for who's looking at perfection, small mistake there, hits the trees, done. Lap time over. He toes it back and will retry in his second and third attempts. Evan, that is how close you have to be to the limit. That is what can happen if you go over the limit. We've seen the kind of far over the limit with all the flipping that we've seen now twice, maybe 3 times so far today. But that is what happens if you go slightly over the limit. He knew he wasn't going to get a winning lap time. He decided he's got 2 attempts in the can. Might as well go up then.
So we'll see how this plays out for him now, as he's got 1 more right-hander into the checkered flag. Bullock, does he improve? He does. He'll jump up to a 5:09.092, so he improves on his best lap time by about 3 seconds. However, it does not improve his position in the standings. You see, he remains in the number 10 spot, but did close in on the likes of Kreutzer, Robichaud, Paulson, and others who may be a target for him to catch when he goes out there for his 3rd and final lap time. And now the next man towards the top of the hill, you're looking at Klaus Kreutzer right now. Sean Winkler also pretty close to the top of the mountain. He didn't put down a lap time in on his first trip, so we'll get a first time in from Winkler. And Kreutzer got a 5:07. We saw Bullock improve by 3 seconds. Does Kreutzer have that same interval of improvement coming up?
Taking a look at Kreutzer once Winkler gets a little bit closer up to the top of the mountain. We'll be able to show you him as well. But there's a look at Klaus Kreutzer as he works his way up the mountain. Winkler puts in his time, 5:08.884 out of his Ford Fiesta. Let's follow Kreutzer as he continues to work his way up the mountain. We see more of that triple monitor setup that we've been monitoring from Klaus Kreutzer since he began.
So we continue to see improvements from everybody when they can get all the way up the hill. And now Kreutzer looking to do a bit of the same, currently sitting in the number 9 spot, and would love to be a contender for maybe a borderline top 5 or to solidify a top 10 spot in this event. And after this, you've only got one more time around. So it's kind of the take your best shot at it lap, and then I think you put all the risk out the window the next time by, and that third trip up the mountain is just pushing it and hoping that it all clicks for you. I love when those cars get air at the back end of some of these corners here up near the top of the mountain. You can see his current time tracking about 15 seconds off. I think he lost a little bit of time there. Some sparks showering off of the left-hand side of that car as it got up against some of the rocks. And again, his current time already elapsing 5 minutes. So this is not going to be an improvement for Kreutzer, as he's still got about another 10-second dash to go.
So it will not be an improvement for Klaus Kreutzer. We now swap to Toby Ward as he works his way up the mountain in the number 66. Remember, he did not put in a time on his first attempt. He made a pretty fatal mistake in his first attempt. He's looking to just put a lap on the board. I mean, we've seen now 11 drivers put laps up so far within the first attempts and a handful of second attempts that we've had. But Evan, he's got only up to go. He needs to put in at least a banker lap time here, so he's got almost something to shoot for in the third attempt. If he can't shoot for the 4:54.071 that Josh Fox put up, shoot to try and beat your best lap that you've got so far on the day.
And we've seen drivers consistently improve over their best lap. It'll be fun to see if the Foxes, Buckleys, and Swans of the world can also mimic that improvement as by far the fastest cars in the field. But for Toby Ward, I guess it also depends on how much up the hill you got, right? What percentage? Did you get 80% of the way through the lap, 90% of the way through the lap? And then you can look to improve on those sections, but this is his first time in this hole shot down to the end of the race. It's a clean exit up. Let's see what Toby Ward's going to do for his first lap of the afternoon. It's a good one, 5:06.887. It'll slot him in to a top 10 spot as they run right now. And again, he'll go down to the bottom weight and then get one more look at Mount Washington.
Swapping our onboards now to Thomas Polson. And how about Evan, all of the accolades that he's got, surrounded by medals, by trophies. He knows what winning is about. Can he get the win of the Race to the Summit 2024 powered by Next Level Racing in that number 49 Fiesta?
I don't think I've ever seen that much hardware in an iRacing onboard
That's
shot
a lot of
before.
hardware.
Is 5:04.668. That's the number to beat. It is a 1 second gap to Zach Blanche. That seems within the realm of possibility. And if you want to get to Palaneva, you're talking 4.5 seconds. That's got to be a big swing of the bat. Let's see what Polson can do. Car seems to be pretty under control there. The 49 car takes a checkered flag, 5:01.932. So it is a healthy improvement. He'll go to P6, still 1 second shy, though, of being in the top 5.
He was not upset by that lap whatsoever. Great to see a good lap get put up for Polson. Now we go to David Schofield, another one of those drivers that had an issue in his first attempt, looking at finishing the run up the hill for the first time. Jump over the road, over the asphalt. It lands beautifully in his Subaru. 4 minutes, 14 seconds as he finishes his run up the hill. Josh Fox, that time to beat, still with a 4:54.071. The running order based off the reverse of qualifying. So it's inevitable that we're going to see times get faster as the running order concludes. But what can Schofield do? Where can he slot his name in? He just needs to get a lap down at this point.
And some of the chatter had been, and you can look at it as we watch these cars go up, that the preferred vehicle swung in favor of the Ford Well, they've got Ford sitting 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the leaderboard, but Josh Fox in a Subaru P1. So if you're David Schofield, it's going to make you feel good that this car has what it needs to get up the hill the quickest. A little bit loose that time, kept it on the asphalt, so it's going to fire off good. Checkered flag for Schofield, 5:06.056. That is a very good lap time for the first of his to be recorded on the afternoon. It'll put him P9.
And now we get a look at the 193. This is Justin Robichaux, who is working his way up the mountain. Evan, very familiar colors in the background of this shot for you, I assume.
Yeah, just looking at some of the entries, you got the Canadian and Robichaux, but you've got a lot of international representation as well. Melisivu from the Finland region. You got Zach Blanche and Alex Gardner from the Australia-New Zealand club. Toby Ward from the UK and Ireland club, along with Chris Pusick. So a lot of international representation. That's not to be surprising. Rallycross and World Rally, by its definition and by its name, expands far beyond the North American borders. It is one of the most popular off-road racing disciplines in the world, if not the most worldwide.
We'll see what one of our Maple Leaf entries can do, and you can see the heart rate monitor bottom left, or I should say just full left side of his camera, 120 beats per minute right now. You got the footwork on the bottom left, and you've got him all on the right. What lap does he put in? It's not going to be his best. He made a couple of mistakes coming up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Crossed the line, 5:16 just about. No, 5:05.712. That'll be 8th place for him on his second attempt up the mountain. We go from Robichaux to Zach Blanche. We talk about cool sim rigs. Is that in a full dirt midget car?
Yeah, that's a whole race car. That is his sim rig, and then I think he's got the monitor in front of him, but he's also rocking the VR goggles, right? So he gives him the option. Looks like he can run the sim without the goggles. And I've seen a lot of people will say, you know, Josh, they'll see these kind of rigs, right, where you've got a race car or a tube chassis, bucket seat, whatever it is, right? And then somebody will say like, oh, well, you have the VR goggles, so you kind of lose the purpose of having that. I disagree, because he sits in the race car, and then the VR goggles is kind of the most immersive way to take in the service. I think it's probably the best way to ground yourself in the race car is to be sitting in a physical car, even though you can't see it, but you got the goggles on. I think it actually fits quite nicely.
And with his sim rig, I will do a shameless plug. Tonight, iRacing special event, the Chili Bowl Nationals will be live right here on RaceSpotTV and all of iRacing platforms as well at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Yours truly is going to be on that broadcast as well. So make sure you tune in for the annual now iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals. We'll go through the alphabet soup and we'll crown another iRacing Chili Bowl Nationals champion later on today. But right now, we focus on Zach Blanche working his way up the mountain. Can say Yanni Paloneva is on a flyer now. Josh Edmondson also on a flyer. Garrett Maines also on a flyer. We've got 4 drivers working their way up the mountain. Who is going to be the best at the end of all 3 of their attempts? Time to beat still Josh Fox. Nobody in their second attempt has been able to get on top of the Williams Esports number 12. Will anybody do that in the latter half of the second attempts or in the third attempts? Blanche almost to the end of his second lap. What will he put in terms of lap time? 5:03.809 was his first attempt. Best in that number 2 Ford Fiesta as he works his way up the Mount Washington Auto Road for attempt number 2. We'll see what lap time he is able to put in. We'll swap our cameras now over to the next driver working their way up. It's Yanni Paloneva, and we're gonna get somewhat of a shot of Yanni, but he is running, I'm pretty sure, pretty late in the evening nonetheless, but also running with almost absolutely no lights on with his sim rig compared to what we just saw. And by the way, end of the lap for Zach Blanche, 5:01.797, improves to 6th place.
2-second pickup. We've seen something in the range of 1 to 3 seconds of pickup as an average. That's been pretty impressive and is going to show that, well, they were still pushing enough for basically half of the field to still make a mistake in their first trip up the mountain, that they were saving a little bit for these second 2 trips up. And now we'll see what we get at Escalating, right? 5 flat was the time that put him to the top spot at one point in the first trip up the mountain, and he was since bested by 4 other drivers. He was sitting down there at the bottom watching those times come in for Maines, for Swan, for Buckley, for Fox. Curious if he went back, looked at any film, watched their trip up the hill, and now we'll see, could Escalating strike back? He needs a whopping 6 seconds to get to P1.
Not going to get there on that one. 5:07.650 with the wreck across the line to boot. So he will not improve. This is Josh Edmondson now, who made the mistake very late in his first attempt. Now looking to not do the same thing here in attempt number 2. No banker lap for him. He has not completed a run up the Mount Washington Auto Road today. Looks to do that on attempt number 2. Climax VR strapped to his face as we take a look at those hands, wheeling that Ford Fiesta up the Mount Washington Auto Road through the asphalt section. He is almost done with the lap, but he's got the tricky all asphalt rocks on either side and a big drop off to his right side sections coming up.
And he took that part a lot easier, I think, than maybe some of the other drivers. You wonder if those rocks, when we get to that final left-hander, are going to be weighing heavy on his mind. Because, again, we think Edmondson was pushing because he knew that he had a lap time that could contend for one of the top positions, and you're almost dreading this point. You know you've made it up the hill this far already once this afternoon. But here we go. Final kind of S section. You try to cut it as straight as you can, dip the tires off the road maybe just a little bit, and now it was right here where it all went wrong for Josh Edmondson. Tires still on the asphalt, doesn't get any rocks. It's going to be a straight shot. What does Edmondson get for lap time number 1?
Crossing the line, 5:03.037 slots him into 8th.
I don't think frustration there too.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be too happy with that one, and you can see that on his face as well. Wanted more, couldn't get it on his first completed run up the hill climb, but we now transition to Chris Pizak, who works his way up the mountain for his second attempt. Did not make a first run up, did not complete a first run up, I should say. This will be his first lap time, and you can see the struggles through the dirt that he is getting now. The Rallycross machines, they're 4-wheel drive, Evan. They can get through the dirt pretty quick. Doesn't mean they're going to be the smoothest through the dirt by any means.
Yeah, he was doing his best to make sure he didn't get up the second time either. I mean, that is the furthest off of that dirt road that I've seen anybody so far tonight, and you can see it got his attention because he kind of sat up straight in his seat and tried to figure it out. He's still going, but to me it seems like that's going to be enough time lost that, yes, he's looking for a first lap time put in, but I would be very impressed if with what looked like a mistake, again, if you're still on the throttle, the 4-wheel drive's working in your favor, maybe it's not so bad, but what looked like some pretty clear mistakes through the dirt section, where that puts Pizak. And again, we don't have a first lap to compare it to, but I would be very surprised if he gets somewhere inside of the top 5. Something else that was interesting, when Josh Edmondson came across the stripe, Josh, he's got that last right-hand kink to the stripe where the checkered flag is thrown. We've seen a lot of drivers just kind of cut corner, get the stripe, and then they go off the track behind the start or finish line, I should say, because it's a sim and you can tear up your equipment, right? You'd never do that in the real world. Edmondson took it a lot more realistically. He actually burped the brakes to get that car to rotate a little bit more, but I have to think that getting on the brakes in that final right-hand kink, literally 15 feet before the finish line, would give away time. So now I'm curious, because Edmondson was the first person I've seen to do that today. What do some of these other cars do? Because I think that was just too conservative. I think you got to go to the stripe and bin it after. That's what some of the fastest cars have done. But let's see. There you go. Full throttle all the way through for Chris Pizak. And that's a pretty impressive lap time still. 5:01.006. So if it wasn't for the mistakes in the dirt, could we have been looking at a top 3 car there?
We will find out what he can do on his third and final attempt. This is Liam Buckley on attempt number 2. How about the shock that we kind of had? 454, 395 on his first attempt. He is rivaling Josh Fox in terms of time. He's got 24 seconds before he reaches that first attempt time. Does he beat it on attempt number 2 and put the pressure squarely on the Williams Esports number 12 of Josh Fox? This is how the hill climb works. You're not putting direct pressure in terms of a battle with another car. You're putting pressure in terms of the stopwatch. And oh, by the way, if he were to beat Josh Fox's time, Fox is just now exiting the dirt section and would have to focus on that for the remainder of his lap. It's not going to be good enough for that. Buckley across the line. 4:54.471 runs within the same banker lap time range, but is not able to get close enough to the top spot. And now we see Josh Fox playing with house money right now, working his way for attempt number 2.
And maybe feeling a little bit better the fact that Buckley did not improve. Is that 54 flat range kind of the best you can get out here on Mount Washington? Fox, the only Subaru that's running inside of the top 9 right now, but still making that Subaru work for all it's worth. Can he improve at a 4:54.071? That lap time is already the fastest lap time we've seen in about 600 or something days in this event. That would have won this event last year. Is it going to remain enough to win it this year? And oh yeah, that man who won just a year ago with a 4:54.120 does not have that banker lap from earlier. So watch that 14 at the bottom of the hill as well is going to be on a mission.
This is a Laurie Lemonsivu you're taking a look at. Evan just mentioned it. Last year's champion of the race to the summit. Josh Fox just crossed the line. Time that came in 4:53.316, and that's an even better lap time now to go to the top of the board. He stays at the top. Now Lemonsivu is not put in a lap time yet. He had a small mistake. I think Evan, millimeters was the mistake that he had in the first corner of his first attempt, and he decided to tow it back and run again, get a full better run in attempt number 2. So we have not seen him go all the way up Mount Washington Auto Road yet today. This will be the first time that we do it. We're gonna ride with Lemonsivu as he does it. Caleb Hines starts his final attempt down at the bottom of the hill. Brandon Bullock's about to start his final attempt down at the bottom of the hill, but all eyes are gonna sit on Alari Lemonsivu as he puts in his first time.
Your first time we get to see him through this part of the racetrack, and I will say that's got a confident move to have a mistake that far down the hill that might have cost you a second or two and just abandon the lap entirely. I think that shows a driver who feels like he's got confidence in his speed, and he's not here to put down a 4:56. He's not here to put a lap time in that was 2 seconds slower than his best lap time from a year ago when he won this event outright. So he has the utmost confidence in his speed. Just threw away the first attempt, and now that he breaks through the dirt section and starts to reach the summit, those trees will fall away down the side of the mountain. He'll get up and into that rocky terrain. What can Lemonsivu do to try to catch a 4:53.316, which is an outstanding lap time by Fox?
Crosses 4 minutes into the left-hander. We've seen drivers around this point before that have not beaten Fox's time. What can he do through the final sector? This final sector, Evan, is really just a lot of full throttle. It is a lot of trying to get the pedal to the floor and run as fast as you can and lift as little as you can. Can Lemonsivu do that on his first full run up the mountain? Crosses 4:35. This isn't going to be Josh Fox beating worthy yet. He's got 13 seconds to get to the line, but this will be a good, I don't want to say practice run, but it could be a really good preview of what we're going to see later from Lemonsivu. He crosses the line. 4:51.1, 4:52.7, and I eat my words. New fastest lap. It's Alari Lemonsivu.
And look at the reaction, right? He expected to put a lap time in like that. There is no celebration. There is no shock in that man's face because he puts down a 52 and he reacted like, yep, that's what I should be doing. Like he expects to put that in. And up and over, Caleb Hides, the #1 car. That right front is destroyed, and Hides is going to strike out swinging 0 for 3 and likely not going to get a lap time in at all. So the final trip up the mountain for all these drivers have started. There's your second car in the order, Brandon Bullock. Coming up next, he's got some work to do. He's the slowest of the cars with lap times in with a 5:09.092, but Lemon Sivu, Josh Fox, head-to-head. They have both already eclipsed last year's winning time. Continues to show the progression of this event on the service.
Brandon Bullock goes for final attempt up the mountain as he continues his way up. Klaus Kreutzer also working on his final attempt up the mountain. Thomas Poulsen has been called to on deck. Toby Ward is beginning his final run up the mountain. And right now, we're really just in kind of lap time watch. I mean, the best from Toby Ward, 5:06.888. And this is really just watching drivers get started. And we kind of know that lap times are going to get faster the deeper we go in the running order. I mentioned earlier the order-based reverse from qualifying. So you know the faster drivers will be coming way later in the running order. But right now, we could see any amount of upset. Remember, the champion's going to be whoever finishes first. But Evan, we've got prizes for the top 3. If you can make a run at Liam Buckley's 4:54.3, if you can make a run at Josh Fox's 4:53.3, go for it. Try and do all you can because there's still prizes on the line, even if they might not get the win.
Yeah, first place, obviously, that GT Elite Light cockpit, but there's more than just that. The GT Light Pro cockpit going to the person who comes in second place, the HF8 haptic feedback gaming pad to third. By the way, Josh, you make it sound like make a run at third as if it's an easier task, as if Buckley's 54.3 wouldn't have been good enough for basically second place last year, right? I mean, that just goes to show how they continue to push the envelope, and even getting into a podium position continues to be so challenging. And what I really wonder is, as these last couple of drivers now begin to put down their final lap in round number 3, we've got a while until the likes of Buckley and Fox and Lemisnov go onto the racetrack again. I wonder what they're spending this time in, as Poulsen is off into the tires, and that will be all she wrote for the 49.
That was a very quick check-in with the Thomas Poulsen, number 49, and a mistake for Brandon Bullock as well. Or he did finish his lap, it looks like 5:10.8 though. Definitely not going to be good enough for top spot. Toby Ward now about halfway up the mountain. He is our next driver that's going to cross the line. Actually, Sean Winkler is going to be our next driver to cross the line. The number 720 has put up a 5:08.884. What can he put up on his final attempt up the hill? I gotta say, Evan, 15th for Sean Winkler at a 5:08.884. I'm a little bit surprised, 16 seconds off of Alari Lemon Sivu. Now, he's not exactly pro level, especially in these rallycross cars, and he makes a mistake here in the final run up to the finish line, but still can put down some good lap times and has some good speed. I don't think Winkler was looking for the 5:08 that he's got on the board right now as his best time of the day.
Let's see what he can do to the stripe, but Winkler does improve. It'll be an incremental step up as that car's going to get dumped beyond the finish line. Winkler improves to an 08.010. It does not gain him a spot in the running order, but again, incredibly impressed with how consistent he is to be able to put 2 lap times in within that interval of each other back to back on trips up the mountain. Kreutzer on track right now, so is Ward, and so is that man right there, David Schofield, as we've got 3 cars and now 4 on track with Justin Robichaux being released from the bottom. We have not seen anybody get in each other's way. Thought maybe that would have been a factor if some drivers made some of those mistakes that we saw and then kept on going. But unfortunately, it has just been self-inflicted errors, and everybody has had a clean road. Race Control doing a good job keeping these cars spaced out and allowing them to compete fairly.
Schofield working his way up the mountain for the final time. Next to be released after Schofield will be Justin Robichaux. He has now been released bottom of the hill, so he begins his final attempt as well. That number 193. Maple Leafs on the back wing. Could that be good luck as he tries to break into the top 10? He needs to make up about 2 seconds if he's going to do that.
And I think that's a good realistic goal for Robichaux as well, is to try to get a top 10 in this, and that would be a really impressive showing. He's the man closest to the top of the mountain right now with quite a ways to go still. Schofield up ahead of him, and then that's it on track right now. Thomas Paulson going to be the next driver to be released at the bottom of the mountain as well. This grid has filled in, again, with the exception of Caleb Hides, who we saw wreck out by breaking the right front tire, and then Alex Gardiner, who will be able, I think, to go one more time, but has yet to do so. Everybody else has been able to get a complete lap in on Mount Washington, which may seem implied, but isn't always the easiest thing to do. So a good showing and good round in participation from everybody for giving it their all. And man, I thought when we cut to that car and it was right sides up on the hill, I thought that thing was going to be going upside down.
Taking another look at David Schofield as he gets into the dirt for his final attempt. Klaus Kreutzer only able to do a 5:05.884 for his final lap. We're taking a look at Schofield right now. We were just taking a look at Justin Robichaux. Alex Gardiner, who I don't believe has made a first attempt or a second attempt. So in the third round, I should say, he is going for the first time, and that's going to be it. He digs out.
Yeah, impressive. Jumped right back out of the ditch like it was nothing. I'll take maybe the jinx on that for saying that Gardner's got one more chance to get a lap time in. That thing just broke traction on him. And then he was okay, but he backed it off and into the ditch. And he was fortunate that he didn't get stuck behind a tire. Listen, there's obviously going to be a lot of time thrown away for Alex Gardiner, but you mentioned these drivers being sent up the hill in reverse order from practice and qualifying and whatnot earlier. Gardiner right in the middle of the pack, right? So this is not a car that, we were expecting to just be happy out here competing. I thought that this would be a guy that would be easily contending for a top 10 spot in this race. Just got to know that he's been frustrated with the way that things have been going. Could have easily have given up there. Would love to see him get all the way through and finish that lap.
Schofield gets to the top of the hill in just a few moments. He crosses the fastest lap time about 2 seconds ago. His best at a 5:06.056. Can he do anything to get in the ballpark of that? That looks like it's unfortunately going to be a no. Final corner, he goes a little bit wide, saves the car from going off and into the rocks and across the line. For Schofield, that will be a 5:07.475. Not going to be his best lap time. Here's Robichaux down one of our longer, not going to say a straightaway, but one of our more high speed, more technical sections at a couple 100 miles per hour. Down and up the mountain he goes for Robichaux's final attempt as Zach Blanche in the 15 just binned it down in the first sector. That is going to be all that she wrote for his final attempt.
Tough to see that, and it means that next man up behind him is going to be only Pelineva to be released, and that's a car that's going to be competing for a top 5 spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Robichaux's in an interesting bubble, right? It's 2 seconds up the road to Edmondson, and if you can take a big swing, if you improve 4 seconds, you're right there in the ballpark for a P6 or so in this hill climb. So Robichaux would need a mammoth of a lap time to be able to do that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. His first lap was a 5:06.258, picked up second time around with a 5:05.711. What can Robichaux do? Final time is in. It's a huge pickup, and he did it. 5-second flat. He got all the way to P6.
What a lap time for Justin Robichaux. There was the issue for Zach Blanche, who in the Excalibur Esports machine ends up off and ending his final attempt. But nonetheless, that brings us right back to just about where we were with Yanni Paloneva working his way up the hill for the final time. Seems like, Evan, either they're gaining time or they're trying so hard to gain time they end up wrecking out. That's kind of what we've seen in the past from the final attempt, and that is what we are seeing here from the final attempt. Yanni Paloneva, right now the only driver that is on the Mount Washington Auto Road for their final attempt. Josh Edmondson will be the next to be released by race control, waiting for the 45-second interval to be cleared, and he is getting cleared right now. He's got 30 seconds to get his lap time up and running.
And with a couple of those mistakes that we've seen from some drivers, it's kind of weird that it's only Paloneva on the racetrack right now. We're used to seeing 3 to 4 cars going up the hill, even 5 at some points at any given time. And right now, Paloneva is the only one running. Edmondson now released at the bottom of the hill. You know he's going to be looking for more in that Channel 199 sim racing team machine. Somebody else who did not get the benefit of cashing in their first lap time, or that big flip right before the finish line on his first trip up the hill. We have seen drivers like Robichaux pick up huge swings. When I was talking, if you could get 4 or 5 seconds, you could be contending for P6. I was thinking realistically, 8th, 9th, it would be a good pickup, but those drivers were all so close. He proved it and went all the way to P6. If Edmondson can get a similar pickup, he'd be looking at a top 5 time that would be rivaling that of Garrett Maines. I would not be shocked, though, if we see some of these big names have big mistakes on this final trip up, right? You've kind of got your bankers in, if you will. There's no sense in going up the hill if I'm Josh Edmondson and putting in a lap time that's going to move me up the hill from 11th to 9th, right? That doesn't accomplish anything for me. I think you just got to go for it.
Edmondson just about halfway through this lap. Still a long way to go up the Mount Washington Auto Road. I say halfway, it just goes to show how long this track is. He's about a third of the way through that lap. Best lap of a 5:03 flat. Looking to improve on that. I think 11th place is way farther down than Edmondson wants to be. We'll see what he can do in that Metro Circus Sim Racing. Now Channel 199 Sim Racing Ford Fiesta. Almost all the way up is Yanni Paloneva. He just made a mistake and went off into the grass and trees for a moment in the dirt. He was able to gather himself up. He's still running up the mountain, but that is going to be shooting for a Laurie Lemon-Sivu pretty much over for Yanni Paloneva. Cannot react from that to beat a 4:52.75.
Just enjoying watching these guys rip up the hill, and what can Paloneva do? That car got a little bit upset there and noticeably had to get out of the throttle. You mentioned it's not a straightaway. You got to be in the gas, and it all falls apart for Paloneva. You saw it start when he had that little bobble. He got out of the gas. He tried to correct it, but it just could never get centered back up again. And Paloneva is going to have to settle for, at best, a P7 because his third trip up the mountain ends upside down. How about this guy, Garrett Maines? What a cool onboard look on the top, Josh. I don't think we've talked a lot about Garrett Maines for being a top 5 car in this hill climb so far. It is a 5.9 second interval between his best lap time and the best lap time in the session. But Garrett Maines has quietly been up there with a lot of the names we've talked more about.
He had an issue on attempt number 2. I can't remember if it was he chose not to run it, had a mistake early, and ended up retiring the car, or what exactly happened, but we were unable to show really any of him in the second attempt. So he put down that first lap time of 4:58.662, and that's about all we talked about Garrett Maines so far today. So luckily able to get this fun perspective for everybody at home, and I love when Garrett is able to give us the GoPro on the head angle of whatever he's racing, whether it's rallycross, whether it's eNASCAR, anything that he is racing on the iRacing service. This is the view that we always want. He's using the triple screens, Evan, but you can really see his perspective. This is what he is seeing in the sim rig, and this is just so cool to see. It is a real life onboard camera for the sim.
Hands down, I think the best look you can get in iRacing. is the triple monitors with the camera mounted on the head. There's nothing better, and especially for a race like this, to see how the car moves, to see how he has to work the hands, work the corner, how he's turning before he gets to the turn most of the time, anticipating what's next. That view on top gives you so much more insight than the shots from the bottom, right, in sim can ever provide.
We're going to keep on riding with Garrett Maines. I don't see any reason to look away from what we've got here. We will very quickly check in with Josh Edmondson on his final attempt whenever he is just about finished with said attempt. But eyes are kind of focused to Garrett Maines to see if he can improve on that top 5. Chris Pizuk has also started a lap, but currently he sits in P8, 5:01.007. Look, he's looking for some improvement. Edmondson is crossing the line. Does he improve on a 5:03 flat? He does. 5:01.294 for Edmondson in the 58. He cracks the top 10 into P9. Back to Garrett Maines as he fights through the dirt. One hand off the wheel for a second as well as he works his way through the dirt. Look at how quick pull of the handbrake to get it to turn. And right back to the asphalt for Maines.
So good. That thing was about an inch off of a rock on the right-hand side of the road, and then he had it about 4 feet hanging off of the dirt on the left side, but that was all the means to the end of cutting a turn into a straight line. It is impressive stuff for Garrett Maines. Again, this unique look puts it into perspective. These are the same techniques, same skill that all these other drivers are displaying in an event like this. Maybe a little bit too far to the right that time through, and then again, you check the brakes here, and then you want to try to make this as straight of a shot as you can. The problem is, again, anything bad in one corner snowballs into, there's no straightaways, to your point, to kind of reset on. So you make a mistake here, it's going to affect you for the next 15, 30 seconds and the next 5 to 10 corners. It's looking like a good lap time for Maines. Again, it would have to be a huge pickup of 5.9 to the green if he wants to go to the very top spot. If he's looking to get into the prize payout, you're looking at a pickup of about 3 seconds and change.
Working his way to his final finish line cross of the day. Maines slams the ground over a bit of a jump on the asphalt. Coming to the finish. Is it enough for the top spot? Garrett Maines at a 4:58.2. He improves, but not in position. He stays P5.
And interesting, he did that same kind of checkup to hook the car around that final right-hand corner that we saw some of the other drivers doing. It just seems like there's more success if you can get that car upset enough to turn it to the right, lean on the left side. Walls, Pusick, look out! Off track, there he goes.
That'll be the end of the third attempt for Chris Pizuk. He'll stay P8 for now. We get a look at Liam Buckley, the Eagle Racing Ford Fiesta, the next to go up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Next to get sent after Buckley is your current leader, Josh Fox. Then it's Robbie Swan. Then it's Alari Lemonsivu. Fox is getting released as we speak for his final attempt to try and get above Alari Lemonsivu for the top spot.
And on this run, it is everything that you've got. 110%. The branches on the trees, scratching the roof of these cars, the side of these cars, as they push into the absolute limit. It's a good start for Buckley again in a much more realistic position to try to take a shot at one of the top spots. Interestingly enough for Buckley, as you now get that split screen look, Fox has been released. He's off and away on the bottom of your screen. Is the fact that, Josh, most of these cars improved on their second lap, some of them significantly. That was not the case for Liam Buckley, but put down a 54.395 on his first lap. That's the lap time that stands and has him in third. His second trip up the mountain, a 54.470. Incredibly consistent, less than a tenth of a second in difference, but it went the wrong direction. Was there a mistake that he knows that he can improve on this trip up the hill? Or is Buckley simply capped out? Is that his best, given that those two laps were so similar?
You can see the differences between the bottom of the hill that Josh Fox is working his way up right now and the top of the hill. Ending the dirt section right now is Liam Buckley, crossing through the better half of 3 minutes. Buckley looking to try and improve on a 4:54.395. Fox looking to improve on a 4:53.316. Both of them looking to get over top of Alari Lamansivu. Robbie Swan, the fourth driver in this talk, and one of the only drivers that left that can beat Alari Lamansivu, is coming up the hill right now. He has begun his final lap time, or will in just a moment. Swan getting cleared right now to start by race control. These are the last 3 drivers that can beat Alari Lamansivu. Lamansivu right now, as he gets ready for his run in about a minute's time, is playing with house money. He's playing basically as the dealer right now.
Josh, you got time to get 2 more PCs hooked up and get a quad box going?
Unfortunately, not.
Going to come all the way down to the end. And Lamansivu has to fire off with the mindset that he needs to improve at a 52.753. Now, if Fox can't do it, Fox is going to be about a minute and a half up the road. He may know coming to the end of his lap realistically if they're actually going to catch him or not, but let's see what Liam Buckley can do. 54.395 is his lap time that has him in third. He improves slightly, but not in position. Buckley will finish at best P3, and now he hopes that nobody knocks him off the podium and takes a prize away.
So that leaves us to now the 12 of Josh Fox, the 37 of Robbie Swan. Alari Lamansivu will be starting his lap in a few moments. We're not going to focus on him for obvious reasons. This is the battle for the top spot. If neither Josh Fox or Robbie Swan can get over of Alari Lamansivu, it's over. Lamansivu doesn't even need to finish his run up the mountain. He is your Race to the Summit 2024 champion. So it all comes down to the next 3-4 minutes or so, as Fox will finish before Swan. Both of them need an improvement of less than 0.6 to get over Alari Lamansivu. This is what it all comes down to. One mistake and you are done.
And for Fox, he was able to pick up 0.7 of a second between his first lap and his second lap. If he can just match that same level of improvement, Josh Fox is going to be taking the #1 spot, but that is easier said than done. He's already in a position that would have won this event last year. So is Buckley in third. These top 3 times, I think, old-time records for this Race to the Summit, presented by Next Level Racing. I'd love if this was like track and field and you got the, personal bests, world records, Olympic records to kind of gauge where these are. What has Josh Fox done outside of this event? Has he put down a lap time faster? There it goes! Oversteps the boundary, and Josh Fox will not win.
Fox will not be able to do it. His 4:53.316 stands still good for second place, but second place is not champion. Robbie Swan, now the only driver left that can get over the time of Alari Lamansivu. He runs up the Mount Washington Auto Road for the final time. What is Swan going to be able to do? Alari Lamansivu is in his first sector. Through the dirt for Robbie Swan. It all comes down to this. Only one driver stands in between Alari Lamansivu and going 2 for 2 in 2 years, and his name is Robbie Swan. Through the dirt. Is it still good? He keeps it on the track. This could be the most treacherous part of the racetrack for him.
It looks really good for Robbie Swan, but he's somebody else who did not improve on lap number 2. His time of a 55.501 was put down on his first trip up the mountain. Split screen box there. Robbie Swan is running about a minute and change up the road from Lavensivu. He will take to the checkered flag first, and Lavensivu will know if he needs to improve or not before he gets to the top. But if you're him, you just cannot even afford to think about that. Don't let the fact that Swan sits fourth coax you into a false sense of security. Fox couldn't do it. Buckley couldn't do it. But Swan is running second last because in the time trials, he was the second fastest man in town to Ilari Lavensivu. Can Robbie Swan pull it out? He would need a total improvement of 2.7 seconds if he's going to be able to get up there. It is a tall order, but Robbie Swan, so far so good, about 30 seconds away.
Don't throw the lap away now. Robbie Swan through the final couple of corners, foot to the floor. Is it enough to beat 4:52.754 from Ilari Lavensivu? If he doesn't, we will have another two-time Race to the Summit champion. At the line, is Swan able to be the time to beat for Lavensivu? 4:54.704, no he's not! Ilari Lavensivu is a two-time Race to the Summit champion! This lap doesn't even matter now! Lavensivu has done it in his second and only run up the Mount Washington Auto Road!
And for a second time in 4 years, we've got a 2 times consecutive winner in the Race to the Summit. And this is a high-speed victory lap now for Lavensivu. Certainly aware of the fact that his time will not be touched. He's now the only man left on the mountain. He's the champion no matter what. And now it's all about making a statement. Remember the reaction or lack thereof when he put down that lap time after not getting the first time in the bank? Went out there on lap number 2. We questioned if he missed it on his first time up the hill, would he be a little bit nervous, right? He kind of aborted that first trip up in the opening couple of corners. Went in, put down the fastest lap time this event has ever seen, and just shook it off like it was nothing, like he anticipated to put it in. So what can he do now that he's actually got a lap time in the pocket? He's already the champion. He's just going for records at this point.
He is going to try and improve on an already fantastic lap time at a 4:52.754. He's playing with all the cards in his hand. He cannot lose. Is this the lack of stress that he needs? He took a hand off the wheel to itch his nose as he goes up the final sector of the auto road. He knows exactly what he is doing. Cool as a cucumber he was in his winning run. Could this be his new winning run? Final couple of corners for Lavensivu as he comes to the finish line at the Mount Washington Auto Road. It's not going to be for the win, but will it be an improve on an already amazing lap? At the line, it is a 5:06, 4:51.926. He does improve and gets into 4:51 territory.
That is insane. We were talking about the winning time from just a year ago being a 1:54, and we've got a 51 by that man who is the fastest in Mount Washington. What an insane drive. With ice water in his veins, Lavensivu takes home not only the win here tonight, but bests it on a safety lap at the end to improve on an all-time record.
By 1.3 seconds. Ilari Lavensivu gets his second Race to the Summit championship. He's already 1-1, and he is getting the prizes for first place yet again. Josh Fox and Liam Buckley round out your podium. We're going to be talking to all 3 of our podium finishers here in just a moment. Robbie Swan, Garrett Maines going to round out your top 5. Justin Robichaux, Yanni Papaloneva, Chris Pizuk, Josh Edmondson, Zach Blanche rounding out your top 10 of cars that made their way up the Mount Washington Auto Road. And rounding out your field, it was Thomas Poulsen, Klaus Kreutzer, David Schofield, Toby Ward, Sean Winkler, and Brandon Bullock for drivers that made it up the Mount Washington Auto Road. Alex Gardner only took one attempt up the mountain. He ended up finishing unofficially 17th with no lap time in as he failed that attempt. And Caleb Hides, who unfortunately with 3 attempts up the mountain didn't make it all the way up on any of those attempts, so he ended up finishing the better part of 18th. And that was all 18 drivers that were taking part in today's Race to the Summit, powered by Next Level Racing, the 4th iteration of the Race to the Summit. And we had 2-time champions to start in Steenberg. We've got 2-time champion now in Alari Lemonsivu. Amazing to see, Evan, as he aborted his first lap after just putting a little bit of a tire into the grass on the first corner, and he decided, wasn't really feeling that lap. Let me run a second and a third instead of the first. And he didn't need the first lap time. He just needed the second and third.
Yeah, and it's all guesstimated, right? But that mistake probably only would have cost him a slim margin, and that first lap time in the end may still have been a top 5 time overall. But instead, he expected to put down top laps, and he came into this event clearly expecting to walk away a champion. And if each lap counted as a separate entry, he'd be walking away with gold and silver. Nobody could touch him tonight, and it's an extremely impressive showing for Lemonsivu.
Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get into post-race and let's talk to your now 2-time champion, Alari Lemonsivu. Alari, you were cool, calm, and collected up the mountain for both attempts, and now we see the smile starting to crack through. What does it mean 2 times in a row you get up the auto road the fastest?
Yeah, of course it means a lot. It was kind of must to win it again. Like I wouldn't have accepted anything else.
Talk about those attempts, because first attempt we saw you just put a little bit of a toe into the grass and you ended up towing it back and running in your second and third attempts. Was it that first attempt just putting a little bit of a foot wrong that you knew that you had better in you, so you towed it pretty quickly?
Yeah, it was a bit more slippier than I thought, like the corner. So I actually took it very easily, like in these next 2 runs. So after that, I just slowly built like the speed and the feeling to the car. So.
Well, moving forward now, you're a 2-time champion. Of course, we do this now yearly in the winter time for the Race to the Summit. Can we look forward to potentially 3-time champion come this time, 2025?
Yeah, maybe if this will be organized again, I will try to, of course, participate. It's a really nice event.
Well, congratulations again, Alari. We know a lot of people make it possible for you. Who do you have to thank for all that speed that you had in that Ford Fiesta today?
Yeah, thanks to my team a lot, that they are believing in me and made the painting to the car. So I'm really happy to my teammates. So thanks to them.
Well, congratulations once again, Alari Lemonsivu, now 2-time champion of the Race to the Summit, powered by Next Level Racing. Evan, Josh Fox was close, but not close enough. You're standing by with 2nd place finisher for Williams Esports.
It's going to be an improvement not only in finishing position and time for Josh Fox from this event a year ago. Josh, it's a P2 tonight. Congratulations on a good showing. Does it hurt a little bit, though, knowing that if you had, this lap time would have won the event last year handily? So you make great strides in improvement. Unfortunately for you, so does the 14 car.
Yeah, thank you. It was tough battling with Alari. I knew it was going to take just about the best from either of us to pull it off, and he ran a killer time on his 3rd run. That's really impressive, and it would have been very hard to match or better that, but I'm gonna be thinking of this year's event a little while. I was up almost 3/4 of a second and going more on that last couple turns on my 3rd run, and just couldn't bring it to the line this time, unfortunately. But glad about the progress, the improvement each year in the time. It's really good, and I almost can't imagine how fast we'll be next year.
We're inching down to the 50 range, and we'll see if it gets that low. One thing we talked about, obviously, the fact that you guys get 3 different goes up the hill. A lot of drivers improved pass by pass. Interestingly enough, we thought that with both you and Alari not getting 3 complete timed laps in, that maybe that was going to hurt you guys. Silly for us to think that way. You still end up in first and second, but your third lap was fastest of your total showing. So what happens, over the course of this event through those 3 runs, as you incrementally maybe push a little bit more over the prior time? I mean, how do you balance that between trying to make sure you get a time on the board, and then once you've gotten that, where you can pick up?
Yeah, the track takes rubber every attempt. Everyone does, and it has a pretty significant effect, I think, on the response of the car. The grip is a little bit different. I think you have less front grip, but a little more rear grip. So it's harder to turn in, but you can get a better run off and up the hills. And I think that's how some people shave some time through the runs. But I think it affected the Subaru a little bit differently. I was not feeling very comfortable in some sections of my last run, a bit more understeer than I usually expected. So, and that's something I'll have to think about for next year.
That was actually my next question. Is there was a lot of chatter about a lot of drivers preferencing the Ford this time around, but you were able to still go out there and put it at a time that was at one point the time to beat, fast enough to walk away with P2 and some prizes in the Subaru. You mentioned that you feel like you maybe recognize some of those changes. It seems like a lot of drivers made that swap. Do you know maybe why those drivers feel like some things have changed here to make that car preferable?
It's a lot smaller. It's much more tolerable to how narrow the road is, and you can get away with a little bit. But it also is pretty quick. I did a little bit of testing, and basically with no practice, and swapped a Subaru basic setup into the car almost. I was in the 455, so I can definitely see how people can pick it up and start running fast.
Well, to your point, we look forward already to seeing what lap times you guys can kick off when we do this for a 5th time next time around. But for this time, it is a P2 in this hill climb challenge. We'll let you get out of here, Josh. Before we do, though, anybody you want to say hi to?
Yeah, just want to throw a big shout out to the Racecraft group for putting this event on. One of my favorite events of the year. Always a lot of fun. And just so glad to get the Williams Esports colors and partners back on the track here today. That felt really good, and I'm excited to be able to do that more often.
We appreciate you being a part of this one and giving us the insight, Josh. Again, congratulations on the P2.
Thank you.
That's your second place finisher tonight. Josh Fox improves after being the number 5 car in this event. Joshua, a year ago.
And that brings us to our final finisher on the podium, Liam Buckley, who ends up with a 4:53.351. Liam, we're in the conversation with Josh Fox and Alari Lemon Sivu there, Robbie Swan as well. Was that the lap time that you were looking for? Do you think you left a couple of tenths out there on the auto road?
Not really. There's only a little bit. I pretty much ran the optimal session sectors from sector 2 on. I just had a few small mistakes on sector 1, cost me a few tenths, and that's really all it was that stopped me from getting P2.
What is it about the auto road that really piqued your interest and kind of pushed you to get all the practice on this track? Because it really is unique. It's 1-in-1 on the iRacing service compared more to traditional rally games than it is to the iRacing.
Yeah, good question. I think it's just a different challenge. A lot of the other racetracks are smooth, only a few turns, but it's just a roller coaster, constantly bumpy, tossing you around. It's just a big challenge, and I enjoy going after the little bit of time and striving for the consistency.
Well, it was 3rd place for you. You're going to go home still with the prizes for 3rd place, but unfortunately not anything more than that, 2nd or 1st. But a good lap from you, prizes for the podium. Anybody that you would like to give a shout out to with this podium finish today?
Of course. Shout out to my lovely fiance, the boys over at Eagle Racing. And thanks to Josh for helping organize, and of course to Next Level Racing for sponsoring us.
Congratulations once again on your third place. Liam Buckley ends up rounding out your podium with Josh Fox and Alari Lemonsivu. But Evan, this brings us to the end of another race to the summit powered by Next Level Racing. And I gotta say, I'm already looking forward to 2025. This Mount Washington Auto Road is just so special. It doesn't get nearly used as much as I personally think it should for the off-road portion of iRacing. And we got to see some of iRacing's best go up the Mount Washington Auto Road today. And we're going to see them do it hopefully again come this time next year. But main takeaway from today, Evan, I think Alari Lemonsivu is still the man to beat. But Josh Fox, Liam Buckley, Robbie Swan, Garrett Maines, they showed sub 5 minutes times, which just a couple of years ago was seen as almost unfathomed.
It was in 2022 only, where you only had like the top 2 cars or so under a 5-second marker. And of course it was Steenberg who was so dominant there. And Lemonsivu had to pry that away from him last year, right? Only won by about a 1/10 of a second. Those two were the class of the field when we did this event in 2023. And to go from that 58 that I talked about 2 years ago to a 51 is absolutely insane. And if that year-over-year pickup continues, you're going to be looking at maybe a sub 50. And it seems silly to even say something like that. There has to be a limit, right? I mean, they can't keep finding 3 seconds every year we do it, but somehow they do. And excited to see the best of the best come back to the mountain when we do it again in 2025.
And we hope that you are going to join us here on RaceSpotTV when we go racing up the Mount Washington Auto Road again. But until then, that brings us to the end of today's broadcast here from the virtual Mount Washington Auto Road. And for everybody at Racecraft Group and at Next Level Racing for putting on this year's Race to the Summit, for my co-commentator Evan Pasoko, my name is Joshua Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in to the 2024 Race to the Summit powered by Next Level Racing. And congratulations to Alari Lemonsivu, who is now a 2-time Race to the Summit champion. Will he make it 3 in 2025? Well, you're going to have to wait a year to find out.